Howdy folks, today I've got kind of a wild recipe that will be sort of difficult for someone to make at home. I'm not even going to be able to follow the recipe I found exactly. It's called the 8 Amaro Sazerac. 8 Amari Sazerac? 8 Amaro Sazerac? 8 Amaros? Who cares? This is a drink I first had at Amor Y Amargo in New York City. That's the bar that Sazerac owns. It's all bitters based, it has no citrus, and all the drinks are pre-batched. It's just it's a tiny place, it's great. I think he's since moved to a bigger location, but I haven't been to New York in a few years, obviously. Now, Sazerac is a super cool dude, but I don't think this was his drink according to what I read on cocktailvirgin.com, another super cool website that I will leave a link to. It was created by Amaro Sazerac. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I've never heard of this person, but I guess they must have been working at Amor Y Amargo in 2011. Anyway, what is it? It is a Sazerac, but only a Sazerac sort of by template. It doesn't have rye or cognac. The base spirit is these 8 Amaros that you put a 1/4 ounce each of 8 Amaros to get your 2 ounce base spirit for your Sazerac. It's got a rinse in the glass, but not absinthe. This will be rinsed with Green Chartreuse, and it'll have Peychaud bitters, a dash of orange, and it'll be presented like a Sazerac. So in a small rocks glass, with no ice, with a lemon garnish that you discard. You express the lemon peel and discard it. It's only a Sazerac in the sort of in the way that it's presented. I know that some people get bent out of shape if you call something by the wrong name or whatever, but this is 8 Amaro Sazerac. It's a Sazerac with 8 Amaro as the base. Now, Cocktail Virgin lists the 8 Amaro that go into the Sazerac, but according to him, he found that on a cocktail database somewhere, and I found another variant version somewhere else. Now, I think this is the sort of thing that will be kind of a moving target. Like, you try and do your best to hit the 8 Amaro, but you're going to have to do some substitutions. I have 4 of the exact ones that are on the site, but I'm going to have to substitute for 4 of them. So if you're going to make this, just do your best to substitute. Okay, the 8 Amaro are Aperol. I think we all know about Aperol. Campari. I think we all know about Campari. Ramazzotti. Now, I'm almost out of Ramazzotti, which is one of the reasons I'm making this, so I can use up the Ramazzotti before I move on. It also calls for Averna, which is what I'm replacing my Ramazzotti with. Here's where the substitutions start. It calls for Meletti, which I don't happen to have, but that's a very middle-of-the-road kind of not too bitter Amaro. I'm going to use Braulio, which is it's from northern Italy, and almost near the Swiss border. And it's very alpine. It's got alpine herbs in it. It's very good. So next is Ciociaro, which I also don't have, but I'm going to substitute Bigallet China. It's a cinchona-based Amaro from France. It's got a very orange flavor to it, and if you ever have a recipe that calls for Amaricano, and you're in America and you can't get Amaricano, Bigallet China is a reasonable substitute. Then comes Amaro Lazzaroni. Lazzaroni I can't get here. I can get their amaretto, but not other things. So if I can't get that, I'm just going to use Zucca, because that just seems reasonable. If you've heard me talk about Zucca before, I'll link to that video. And the last one is Amaro Sibilla, which is a very bitter, like very herbal, like sort of intensely bitter one from Italy. And I'm going to use Fernet instead just to throw in that bitter component. So let's stir it up. I love this glass, by the way. This is the glass I prefer for Sazeracs. If you want to see more of my glass collection, I got a video about that as well. Let's give this a taste. Not really detecting the chartreuse on the nose. It just smells like a very complex Amaro. Whoa. Okay. It's fairly sweet, as you might expect. And obviously, I don't have this sort of palate that's going to be able to pick apart every Amaro in this, but you definitely get the sort of Fernet-y, sort of bitter aftertaste, a little bit of that menthol aftertaste. Otherwise, it's sort of a very complex, fairly sweet, subtle drink. It's a classy, subtle drink. Now, one thing I will say is putting in a quarter ounce of all these different bottles is time-consuming and silly. What Southern Teague would have done, and certainly does do, is batches them all up ahead of time. So he'll mix, you could even mix a full bottle of all 8 things into a Cambro, into a bucket or something, dilute it, and then pour it back into bottles. And then when it's time to keep those cold and when it's time to serve, just prepare the glass with your rinse, pour it in there, and off you go. So it's a little bit of a gimmick, and it's sort of a little bit silly of a thing to do at your house, but you know what? I like silly things. I'm a silly fellow. This is pretty fun if you've got the Amaro on hand. It's kind of fun to try and figure out what's in there. It's really complicated, and I might be getting a little bit of that Zucca smokiness, which is hard to believe, but definitely I get the aftertaste. Now, I realized when I was putting this together that I could actually make a whole second 8 Amaro Sazerac with totally different Amaro, just from the ones that I've got here at the house. So I decided I would have a second one and see if we can tell the difference. The second Sazerac, the 8 Amaro I'm going to use, Bruto Americano. It's from Alameda, California. It's fairly bitter, red aperitif liqueur, kind of like Campari, but a little bit more bitter. Gran Classico, that is from Tempus Fugit, and they make it in Switzerland. It is also fairly bitter red liqueur. It's got a real blueberry kind of flavor. Third up will be Clalisaya. This is from Oregon. It's a cinchona bark based Amaro, sort of fairly bitter, a little fruity. It's really very good. It's supposed to be recreating an old recipe from the pre-prohibition days of a product called Clalisaya that they don't make anymore. It's very interesting. I really like this place that makes it. It's called Elixir. Number 4 will be Amaricano. It's from Seattle. If you haven't seen the video I made on that, I'll put a link to that. Now we're going to get into the Italian ones. I've got Amaro del Etna, which is from Mount Etna in Italy. Pretty good, fairly bitter, almost like a Chinner. Next we'll have Montnegro, which is also from Italy, and it's a very flowery, very light sort of flavored one. I have a feeling I might get a little lost in this, but we're throwing it in. Next, also from Italy, Dente di Leone. This is a new one I just got. It's made with dandelions, a little bit minty. It's pretty good. And last, just to bitter things up even more, we're gonna have Gammel Dansk. This is a Danish bitter dram that they actually make in Norway now. There's a whole video on that as well if you want to check that out. And instead of rinsing the glass with Green Chartreuse, I'm gonna rinse it with this stuff called Ver. This is also made in Oregon by the same people who make the Clalisaya. It's basically a chartreuse kind of tribute, let's say. It's pretty good. I don't like it as much as I like chartreuse, but it is delicious herbal green liqueur, and we're gonna use it for this. Everything else is the same. Let's go. Here we go. Got it right here. Now let's just check it out. It's got a much lighter color. It's not nearly as dark, a little more red looking. And I'm expecting this to be a lot more bitter. The components I put into this tend to be much more bitter than the ones that I put in the other, so let's give it a try. Oh yeah, definitely less sweet. Ooh, a lot more menthol. And I get the Gammel Dansk at the end, just like I did for the Fernet. It's got a nice like fruitiness to it. I actually might like this other version better. Well, I have to try this again. Now again, I'm not necessarily detecting the rinse. I don't have a squirt bottle for chartreuse. If I had chartreuse in a squirt bottle, I would definitely spray it on top, and that would probably get me more of the aroma. But I really like my well, it's not a local version, but you know, my alternate Amaro version. I think that Gran Classico, which has got that sort of berry flavor, is really making itself known. Again, it's really hard to pick out the separate ones, but these two are very different. It definitely matters which Amaro you put in this. And if you've got 8 Amaro at home or more, this would be just really fun. If you're going to a party, you could definitely pre-batch a bunch of it and, you know, have a good time, impress your friends. I hope that was fun for y'all. It's fun for me. This sort of thing I enjoy is making a ridiculous drink. So hope you will like and subscribe, and we will see you next time.